Hello again, I'm Robert Fifth in part 3 of ranking 140 albums from 1991. First of all, I want to thank you for clicking on part 3 and joining me as this journey continues. I know a lot of times I do multiple part videos and it's like part 1's up here, part 2, part 3. So thank you so much for clicking on this video and continuing the ranking of all of these albums. It definitely took a lot of listening, a lot of work goes into this. With reviewing these and ranking them, so I definitely appreciate you checking this particular part out. Hopefully you'll join me for the rest of them as well. But right now we are at number 112, and it's already time to talk about Huey Lewis and the News and their album called Hard at Play. Now this is a return sort of to their just basic pop rock kind of stuff, just kind of bar rock, sound. They did a little bit of a jazzy thing on their Small World album. That came up before this one, and this is kind of a return to the earlier stuff like you heard on Sports and whatever, but it's not as memorable. The songs don't sing as well, as kind of fully formed, I guess. There's not a lot of hooks going on. It's just kind of like, yeah, we're gonna fly through this song. All right, we're gonna go through we're gonna coast. We're gonna coast through this song. We're gonna coast through that song, is what this sounds like. The general themes are there, my baby's left, my baby doesn't want me anymore. I don't know if my baby wants me. Hey, all I need is a couple days off because I'm a hard-working man, one for the working man. That was the big single, Couple Days Off. There was also Hit Me Like a Hammer, which is kind of a, mid-level, not very memorable kind of stuff there. I think their heyday was kind of over at this point, so this is kind of just a serviceable Huey Lewis and the News album, kind of like the ones they'd put out later. It's not great, it's not awful, and that's why it makes it right here on this list. We're in the kind of nah section of the list. It's kind of it's passable. Passable Huey Lewis and the News album. It's got corny stuff on there like do you love me or don't you? Or whatever that is. The last song on the album though, they kind of hit a stride where they just kind of breeze right through it effortlessly, and it actually pulls it off. It's a nice way to wrap up the album. It's called Time Ain't Money. Nothing, monumentally special about it. It's just Huey Lewis doing what they do. But that's like a big up-tempo, kind of, like I said, just breezing right through it. But it's got no kind of corniness or, kind of cringe that goes on in some of the other tracks on here. So, again, best way I can describe it, a serviceable, an unleaded Huey Lewis and the News album. Next up is Angel Rat from Voivod. And Voivod is a band that I didn't hear this again until I got into college in like 93, 94. But Voivod was a band that I heard a lot about, but I never heard them, until later, a couple of years after this album came out. And but I heard a lot of great things. Like they were very influential. They're just awesome. They're getting all these rave reviews and Spin Magazine and some of the metal rags that were out at the time. And finally heard this and I was really kind of underwhelmed. I still don't get really the praise. I mean, it's okay. There's a couple of standout tracks on this album. Like Gollum is pretty cool. I like the slide guitar and New Age Fractal, the whole effect on there. But the vocals seem kind of, just kind of pedestrian, just kind of not stellar, I guess, not really standing out. And they're a Canadian band. I don't know why I just came up with that, but they are. But yeah, I was underwhelmed. I was expecting a lot more, and that's probably, not the band's fault, but I just heard so many awesome, oh my God, Voivod. They influence these guys and influence these guys, and it's like, well, aren't they your current band? How are they influencing all these people? But yeah, and then I heard them and I was like, eh. And then I haven't heard them in decades and just heard them again for this video, and I'm just like, yeah, my assessment, I'm standing by my original assessment. They're okay, 3 out of 5 stars, but I mean, maybe they have a lot. I know that there was another CD that we had at the college station. I don't remember what it was called, but it's the one with the 3D cover. I don't remember what that one sounds like, but I remember we had this one, and this is the one I listened to the most, and we played a couple of songs off it, and I'm just like, eh. Let's go to Switzerland now for some thrash metal from the band Coroner and their album called Mental Vortex, which features a photo of Anthony Perkins from Psycho on the cover. So yeah, definitely checking this out, and it's pretty mid-tempo thrash metal. I know the thrash is not speed, and there's all these subgenres, and I know the difference in some of them anyway. But yeah, but it is pretty mid-tempo stuff. It's pretty tame compared to some of the other kind of extreme metal that was out there in 1991. The vocals are what kill it for me, though. The vocals are what keep it from going further up on the ranking here. They're not guttural vocals. They're not my favorite kind of extreme metal vocals where it's full-throated bellowing. They're more pukey vocals, like it's that kind of thing. But the music's pretty good. Like I said, some mid-tempo. I do tend to go for more aggressive, kind of faster stuff. This is, like I said, pretty calm comparatively. But there are some nice guitar riffs, especially in songs like Metamorphosis and Semtex Revolution and Sirens. There's some good guitar parts in there, but again, a lot of it overshadowed by those vocals, of course. Not a lot of really overly interesting stuff where you're just kind of like, wow, that was really cool. It's basically, if you can call it mainstream thrash metal, if there's such a thing, this would be what this is. So they do a cover version of the Beatles' I Want You, She's So Heavy. Very, very straightforward cover of that. I mean, they just take the Beatles song and they just, make it a little more 1991 thrash metal-ish with some squealing guitar over the top. It even ends the exact same way the Beatles one ends, with it just cutting off like that. It's pretty much the same length, same exact, configuration, the same sort of arrangement. Everything is the same. So, yeah, not a lot of innovation there. But, yeah, it's an okay album. Not my favorite thrash, not my favorite extreme metal. And the vocals, like I said, keep it from rising any higher than right here on the ranking. Cool cover art, though. Bonnie Raitt, Luck of the Draw. Not only kind of a poor album, but poor packaging. One of those eco packs. Because we're trying to save the earth by not distributing jewel cases. Because people just throw away jewel cases. No, they don't. I never threw away jewel cases. How is that saving the earth? Well, it's not. It's saving money. That's why these existed, because we're going to save money by coming up with these cheap-ass eco packs. But yeah, I digress. Bonnie Raitt's Luck of the Draw. I like some early Bonnie Raitt. I like the Warner Brothers Bonnie Raitt. I like the bluesy, gutsy Bonnie Raitt. She's pretty cool on some albums, Taking My Time and things like that. But this was where she goes really light rock, soft rock, whatever you want to call it. It has that Grammy stench, and that's exactly what this did. Won some Grammys because that's what albums like this do. When they're really safe and middle of the road, and it's the kind of thing you buy in a coffee shop, it's going to win Grammys. Same thing goes for Norah Jones, the same thing goes for Mary Chapin Carpenter, and Michael Bublé, and Harry Connick Jr., and all that shit. It's all Grammy shit. I never liked the Grammys. The Grammys are completely uninteresting to me. I don't understand why metal people get so upset with the Grammys. The Grammys are a promotional tool to sell albums in coffee houses for people who are not really music fans. That's what the Grammys are for. The Grammys are a marketing tool. And they're also a gala event where everybody dresses up, and they're also a TV show and whatever. The Grammys are a marketing tool. They win the Grammy. You have somebody, like the Office Christmas party. You got to buy a gift. You're going to buy a Grammy-winning CD because everybody's going to, Jennifer's going to open that from accounting, and she's going to go, oh my God, the Bonnie Raitt, I've heard about this. Thank you, Amy. I was wanting this. That's what Grammys are for. Because not everybody is a super music fan. I'm sure if you're watching this, you're probably like me. You're a big music fan. You like all kinds of music. You're really into it. You've been into it probably your whole life. But a lot of people are not into music. It's a tertiary thing for them. But for some reason, everybody thinks they have to have a music collection. So you have those people that have, 15 or 20 CDs, or maybe in the 70s and 80s, they had 15 or 20 albums. They probably got a lot of them from Columbia House or whatever. They're not big music fans. But they have their little collection. That is what the Grammys are for, to market to those people. Bonnie Raitt, Luck of the Draw is what that is. The song Something to Talk About is okay. It's a light rock staple. It's just kind of there. It's passable. It's not offensive. It's not annoying. It's not, making me run to the radio and shut it off. It's just kind of wallpaper. It's all right. It's fine. And that's this whole CD. It's just fine. Like when somebody asks how you doing, fine. That's who buys these CDs. So Bonnie Raitt, look at the draw. Let's reshuffle that deck and come up with something earlier from her, please. 1991 brought us the band Altered State and their self-titled album. They would have another one off of this called Dose, which the cover of that one just really looks familiar to me. I mean, maybe we had a poster of that on the college radio station or something. But anyway, this one is just called Altered State. And they are described in a few different places as progressive rock. They are not that. They are basically a very poppy kind of, in certain songs, more of a funk rock band. Their first song on here was their first single called Step Into My Groove. Not a favorite, but it's got that kind of funk rock. It's a very happy, I step into my groove, that kind of thing. Not into it. The second song is pretty good, though. I think that was actually the second single, Ghost Beside My Bed. It's got this really kind of eerie vibe. Kind of sounds like something that might be from a lower budget, like, late 80s, early 90s horror movie or something like that. But it's a pretty cool track. It's like 5.5 minutes long, but it warrants that. It's definitely the best thing on this album. Most of it kind of sounds like something that actually would be from some more of a light-hearted 80s soundtrack. Like you get those 80s movies that they didn't release the soundtrack, something like 3 O'Clock High or something like that, where the soundtrack isn't full of hits. It's just got bands on there that, were only in LA or something like that. This group kind of sounds like they would belong on one of those soundtracks. They've got a song on here, this whispery song called Reunion, which sounds more like it would be on some sort of perfume commercial, like, Calvin Klein's Obsession, Reunion, it sounds like that, hey. I think he's trying to sound sexy or something, and it just does not come off that way. Altered State is a band that, I had totally forgotten about this album. I had totally forgotten about this band. I don't think they really went anywhere after this. I'm not even sure where they're from. Probably should have looked that up. But, yeah, Ghost Beside My Bed. You want to stream that or something like that, check that out. It's pretty cool. Obscure track from 91. Maybe that'll bring back some... Step Inside My Groove. I think that was on MTV a few times. It was on there for a while. That might bring back some memories. But the rest of this is, it's just kind of average. Your upbeat funk rock stuff. A lot of the songs just kind of cut off because, they're alternative like that, or their songs just stop. But yeah, Altered State. Great name for a band, I'll give them that. So when I started listening to the Roxette album, I wasn't expecting too much. Not really my kind of thing. I'm not really into the whole straightforward pop stuff from the 90s. My pop stuff is when I was growing up, 70s, 80s, and then even before that, 60s pop and stuff like that. 90s pop, a little too old for that at this point. A little too cool. Too cool for the straightforward pop. Although they're from Sweden, so they get a little extra spice in there, a little more interesting. But actually not too bad. A little better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not a huge Roxette fan based on their Look Sharp album. It was just kind of I could take it or leave it. The first track is the title track, Joyride, upbeat pop tune. They got the ballad also, Fading Like Flower Every Time You Leave. They're okay. They're Roxette doing their thing, basically, and it's just really kind of not my thing, but I was kind of surprised the music is a little more organic than I expected, a little more of a rock guitar sound in some of the tracks. Now, you do get to the Cabbage Patch drums when you get to like the fourth track, so that was a little disappointing because I thought, oh man, this is actually pretty good. It's not, considering what it is, all right. And then of course here comes the drum tracks and the 90s flourishes, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, there we go. And so yeah, I think there's like 14 songs on here. So it's almost an hour, maybe right around an hour long, so it's got a lot of music on here. That's the way they did it in 91 with some of the CDs. They started expanding their time on there, and you had albums and a half, basically. And so it does start to wear out its welcome as part of a, mainstream pop type thing. But, not too bad. Like I said, I was a little surprised by some of the harder rock elements in this. That was a nice touch. But, if you like pop music from the 90s, you probably like Roxette if you've never checked it out. If I remember correctly, this was around the time that McDonald's was They had a McDonald's CD that you could get for free when you ordered like a Big Mac or something. They had the Roxette one. I want to say I know they had a Garth Brooks one because that used to show up in all the used sections. And I think a Tina Turner one. All, through Capital EMI or whatever. But yeah, you could get a free Roxette CD from McDonald's right around this time. I don't think it had any of the hit singles on there. I did notice on one of the tracks called "Knocking on Any Door" where the males, because it's it's a female and a male. I think the woman is Marie Friedrichsen or something. I don't know the guy's name, but it's when the guy is singing and he's singing really really fast and that really kind of low tone like that. It sounds like Savage Garden. Aren't they the ones that had the something dun, dun, cherry cola? Ooh, I want you. I think that came out later, right? I think Savage Garden took that sound from that "Knocking on Any Door" song from Roxette. So one thing I can't appreciate though, I did learn by reading the credits of this release that there is a studio in West Sweden called Tits and Ass Studio. Tits and Ass Studio is where this was partially recorded. Who knew? Well, probably people in Sweden. All right, here's where I lose some people. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in this ranking. You're going to have people going, what? Really? Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Overkill. Sorry. The hardcore New York band Overkill, they had an album out called Horrorscope at this time. Horrorscope, not horoscope. And yeah, I mean, it's okay. Like I said, I'm never a big fan of these guys. They're not sleazy and fun enough to be like the glam metal stuff. They're not intense enough to be like the extreme metal. They're in the middle, and it's not interesting. It's not one way, or it's just two right down the middle of the road for metal, and they never really, they never really got my attention. I guess they are loud, they are heavy, they are talented, they can play their shit, but it just never really did anything for me, and this is another one of those albums. They do have a cover of Frankenstein from the Edgar Winter Group where they just ripped that out. So that's kind of cool. They got a little horror piano thing that's kind of interesting on the song called Bare Bones, but mostly it's very, very straight up, no frills, nothing too cranked up, extreme, nothing too fun, still, just right down the middle, hardcore metal, and it just never really did anything for me. So yeah, Overkill Horrorscope. You probably like it though, but yeah. All right, time for some silly pop from the band Voice of the Beehive and their album called Honey Lingers. And just some silly, goofy pop fun. This one gets a little extra spice in there because of the guitar sound. They are an organic group, or at least they sound that way, so you don't have the drum loops and the samples and the stupid shit that I can't stand. They sound like they've got a real band backing them up, so that's cool. But it is just fun pop stuff, nothing to be, blown away by or anything like that. They are one of those American outfits that had to go to England to to get signed and to get a record deal and to become somewhat famous. I don't know how famous they were. But yeah, they're one of those things where nobody appreciated them in America, so they had to go to England, kind of like Jimi Hendrix. So the Voice of the Beehive, very, very similar to Jimi Hendrix. Not really. But yeah, they do a cover of the Partridge Family's I Think I Love You. We could have done without that. That's a Partridge Family song and a Partridge Family song only. Don't cover that. So yeah, it's just some silly fun on here. If they would tone down their sound a little bit, it would sound more like, it could pass for like early 90s country, like something like Shadazy. It's that kind of just real mainstream, middle of the road, nothing to get too excited about, but also nothing to get upset about. It's just kind of, oh, okay, that's neato. That's fine. It's fine. That's what it is. It's fine. Voice of the Beehive. Big Drill Car, remember them? They had an album called Batch in 1991. Short album. Like less than a half hour long, but that's how you do it when you're a punk pop band or a pop punk band. Not a fan of the punk pop stuff, never was. These guys do it really well though, and it's supremely recorded. Produced by Stephen Egerton and Bill Stevenson of The Descendants. And sounds terrific. Great sound quality. Just a lot of it's not my thing. I was never into, like the Blink 182 and the Green Day and all the stuff that would come later. you know, all those bands that had numbers in their name and they were all on Epitaph or something like that, and the Good Charlotte and all that. I never liked that stuff. And this is kind of a precursor to a lot of that. But this is actually a couple notches above. Very whiny vocals on the very first song, Takeaway. And it was like, man, this whole thing's not going to be like this, is it? And it's not, so that's good. I like it when the vocals are in a little lower register, like in some of the other songs. They slow it down a little bit, rock out a little bit, and not so much of the I sing everything up here like this in this key because I'm a punk pop guy. I never liked that stuff, but I can certainly see why somebody would. Like I said, they do what they do really well. A lot of it is just not my thing, but there are decent moments on this album. I gotta say, they do a little more than just that kind of thing, and that's the kind of stuff that I like on here. But it's very, very short, so there's not a lot to love. They do a cover of Devo's Freedom of Choice. I definitely prefer the Devo version, but I am putting this a little higher on the ranking because, like I said, what they do mostly is not my thing, but I can see that they do it really, really well. I can see why somebody would like this, and the production and the recording on this, stellar. And the band is really, really tight. And like I said, they're great at what they do. So yeah, that's why they're kind of here in the ranking. But yeah, Big Drill Car. They only had a few albums out, and this was one of them. The Feelies put out an album in 1991 called Time for a Witness. And the Feelies are a band that always, to me, especially on this album, kind of sound like a band that's not trying very hard. They sound like a tight band that's well rehearsed, but they just are kind of there. They don't care if you like them. They don't care if you don't. They're going to play their guitars. They're going to sing their lines, and then they're going to leave. It's like they kind of have a sort of, not really aloof, because I don't want to give the impression that they are like loose and all over the place and sloppy. They're, like I said, they're very tight. They know how to play their instruments. They sound like a group that maybe just learned how to play and then practiced a lot, and now they play really well, but they just don't care. That's the image I get from listening to the Feelies. I haven't heard these guys in so long. I mean, I heard a couple of their albums, including this one, back in the 90s, early 90s, and then they just kind of fell off. Nobody really talks about the Feelies anymore. So it was nice to get reacquainted with this one. But yeah, just a lot of chords, a lot of very kind of forgettable songs. It's the kind of thing that you can listen to while you're doing something else. That's what I'll say. It's a great listen if you've got your mind on other things and you're not paying really close attention to it. If you're looking for an album where you can really dive in and listen and catch all kinds of different things and great melodies and hooks and memorable lyrics and, well, my favorite song is this, but I really like this song too. This one's not that good, but oh, the next song's great. This is not the album for you. This is the kind of thing where it's just kind of, it's quality, but it's just kind of there at the same time. The much maligned David Bowie project, Tin Machine 2, was released in 1991. This is, of course, the follow-up to Tin Machine, which was also not exactly critically acclaimed. I had actually never heard the second album until just recently, and you know what? It's really not that bad. I mean, I remember when this was out, one of the reasons I never checked it out is because it seemed like everybody hated it. They were acting like this was one of the worst albums ever. Like, this is like Nickelback level. And it was just like, I just heard it. It's not like, you know, Ziggy Stardust or, you know, Hunky Dory or Let's Dance or Diamond Dogs or something like that. But I mean, it is David Bowie, and it's listenable, and it's upbeat, and it's got a lot of great musicianship going on in it. It's not, you know, it's not a bad album or anything. It's just kind of, I guess, kind of disappointing because you expect a little more from David Bowie, but it's definitely top-loaded. The best songs are right at the beginning, so if you turn it on and you don't like those, you're probably definitely not going to like, I'm always saying that. You're probably not going to like what's, you know, in more like the second half of the album. It does not only feature David Bowie, but also features Reeves Gabrels, which he is currently with The Cure. He's been with The Cure for like the last 10 years or so. He's on guitar. He also co-wrote a lot of the songs with David Bowie. So you have that. They do a Brian Ferry song called If There Is Something. That is definitely a highlight. But yeah, it's the best songs are right at the beginning, first 4 or 5 tracks. And then, you know, once we get into the second half, the drummer takes over the vocals for a couple of songs, One, this awful bluesy thing about how he's going to see his girl. She's stateside and he's headed home. It does not fit with the rest of the album. It sounds completely out of place and kind of unnecessary. And then he shows up again on this song called Sorry, where he's, I'm sorry I hurt you, baby. Oh, love does crazy things. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, dude, you're sorry. He says, I'm sorry I hurt you. It sounds like he's saying, I'm sorry I hit you. But, yeah, that's the drummer again on vocals. So those two could have been left off. You still would have had an 11-track album. Well, 10 tracks and then this, minute-long thing at the end. But that still would have been a decent amount of time for an album. But, yeah, it's not horrible. It's not amazing. It's just, it's a David Bowie album on par with some of his sort of lesser ones. But, man, like I said, when this thing came out, people were acting like it was absolute bottom-of-the-barrel, abysmal, just absolute trash, and it is not. Did you know that Donna Summer had an album out in 1991? I don't think most people did. This is another one that's kind of overlooked. It got critically panned and didn't get much love on the charts at all, and not that bad though. It's a serviceable 90s kind of dance pop album, and Donna Summer's voice just kind of makes it that much better because she's queen of disco, but disco's not around anymore. So she's got to take her sound and put it into the 90s, and that's what the producers try to do here. So you got the Cabbage Patch drum tracks, you got the New Jack drum tracks, you got record scratching, you got rapping. It's not Donna Summer doing the rapping, but you do have a rap part on one of the songs, and like I said, the god-awful record scratching noise that I can't stand why that. I don't know why that lasted for 20 years, but I always hated that, and I don't like the Cabbage Patch drums, and I don't like New Jack sound. But this album does get better when they just do the basic club sound of the time. So that, besides the New Jack and the Cabbage Patch. So that it does shine in certain parts. Like I said, it's much better than the critics gave it credit for back then, and certainly deserved better than to just show up in the mid 100s on the charts and then go away. So yeah, it's not classic Donna Summer, but if you're a Donna Summer fan, and you're not familiar with this album, Mistaken Identity, you should definitely check it out. Or she's not known as Donna Summer. On the album cover, you'll notice she's known as Summer Donna. I don't know what the point of that was, but yeah, that album cover, too, is not the greatest. That probably kind of kept it from getting any more popular than it was. And you turn it over and, wow, that hair. Woman, you crazy. That hair. But yeah, Donna Summer, Mistaken Identity. The title track is actually about a mistaken identity. So it's kind of gritty in parts and, gritty for Donna Summer. I mean, she was in the 70s singing about prostitutes and things like that. So not exactly out of character for her to get street on us. The very first song is called Get Ethnic. It's a little strange. You might want to just skip that and start with track 2. So she's got the dance stuff. She's got the 90s kind of R&B stuff going on. She does have a couple of nice ballads on here that, if you're a drag performer and you have not heard these ballads, maybe you want to check them out. Donna's waiting for somebody to get on stage and, mime these. So let's see it. And then it does end with a big, we need more peace on earth and things like that. You might want to skip over the second to last track. That is this what you want or whatever it's called. That's not a very good one at all. But overall, a serviceable Donna Summer album from 1991. It's if you're thinking, I want a nice three-star album, a middle of the road kind of thing. Don't expect too much, but if you go in thinking it's going to be awful, you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think, with Donna Summer's Mistaken Identity. So what's one way to assure that your band has very little success after the 90s start rolling in? Well, here's one way. Call your band Enuff Z'Nuff and spell it E-N-U-F-F. Yeah, that's a very, very 80s hair metal band name, even though these guys kind of veered away from the hair metal sound a little bit. They're more of like just a hard rock pop band, really. They kind of have that kind of sound. Sometimes they just go for the straightforward rock, but there's not a lot of like the squealing guitar type of things. I don't imagine these guys with a bunch of like the makeup and the spandex and the flying V's and all that kind of stuff. These guys were more about the trippy kind of, the peace symbol for their logo and the big red round glasses and all that kind of stuff. But their name is still Enuff Z'Nuff. And of course, I get it, the bassist and one of the main guys, Chip Z'Nuff, that's his last name. But most people who would just see this band wouldn't automatically have that knowledge and would just see it as another cheesy misspelled kind of 80s hairband name. And yeah, Enuff Z'Nuff. It's not a great name, but it's their name, and I think they, kind of got overlooked once 91 hit with their second album, Strength. And it's not an excellent album or mind-blowing or any way, but it's not terrible. This is the not terrible part. Not great, not terrible section of the countdown of all these albums. Got a song on here called In Crowd, all about how, isn't it horrible to have to dress a certain way and look a certain way? And I've been I've been infected by the in crowd. I've been affected by the in crowd. So they're kind of saying that they're doing their own thing. But again, their name's Enuff Z'Nuff. Yeah, Baby Loves You is a real catchy, like, pop rock number that somebody like Cheap Trick could have done. Matter of fact, lead singer kind of has a Cheap Trick, Robin Zander kind of, vocal styling. Poor Enuff Z'Nuff. They really should have not gone with that name. But the album is, like I said, it's not terrible and it's not great. All right, time for Rod Stewart and Vagabond Heart. Now, come on now. It was a big album in 1991. Got to talk about it. It's not horrible. It's just, you know exactly what it is. It's Rod Stewart in his adult contemporary phase. Very, very polished music. Very, drum, click track kind of percussion. Nothing really overly inspiring. I don't know if it was nominated for any Grammys or not. Maybe it was. It seems like it should be. It's that type of thing. But it's Rod Stewart. He's still got a great voice. He's just not, doing the stellar stuff that he did, back in the 70s. He's not even doing the fun disco stuff that he did in the later 70s. But it's still Rod Stewart, and his voice is still fine. The material he's working with, he kind of makes it a little more listenable just because it's Rod Stewart. But if this would have been anybody else singing on it, just some random, Michael Bublé or something, then it would be, I wouldn't have even bothered with it. But I did want to kind of hear it. I mean, I haven't ever heard this album completely before. I was familiar with the singles, which are Rhythm of My Heart, which sounds kind of like a Scottish, sway back and forth drinking song. It's got that kind of feel to it, with the adult contemporary mix going on. And then Broken Arrow, the Robbie Robertson song. Who else is going to bring you a broken arrow? Probably just you, Rod. I don't know many people that go around giving people broken arrows. But, that song brings back some memories. I was all over I think, the radio, MTV or whatever, always playing. That was the kind of thing that was just coming out of the air in 1991. It was just around. Motown song with the Temptations is, it's lively. It's okay. It's what it is. And there's actually a duet on here with Tina Turner. It's the Marvin Gaye and Kim Weston song It Takes Two, which is super lively. Always love that song. Here, it's the light rock mix, and Tina Turner's talent is completely wasted on this song. She's actually her vocal is brought down, a little bit drowned out by the music, which I don't really understand that. I don't get why they didn't push her. Let's hear Tina Turner, push her up. But it kind of wastes her turn, but it's still a lively, it's what you expect. Maybe a little better than I thought it would be, but not by much. And you can certainly tell by some of the songs on here the exact direction where he's going. He's got a song on here where he keeps repeating the chorus, it's better to have loved and lost than never to love at all. It's like, oh, wow, that's groundbreaking. Where did you come up with that? I've never heard that before. But, he keeps repeating that. And you can tell in songs like that the direction he's going. He's got, what's the one? It's the Van Morris's song, Have I Told You Lately That I Love You? That's the one where you can really tell the direction he's headed later on, doing the schmaltzy Christmas albums, the schmaltzy, Rod Stewart sings the American Songbook, Volume 6, He's had a bunch of those out later on. Now, I'm sure those got nominated or won some Grammys. That is total Grammy material right there. But, this one is... it's probably the last Rod Stewart album that you even want to even try to consider listening to. So that is Vagabond Heart. So when listening to all of these albums from 1991, I'm hearing things that I had forgotten all about, bands that have been forgotten by time, bands that have been, legendary. And then there's bands like Slint, where they've kind of got a resurgence in the last few years. And I think they seem kind of ahead of their time on their Spiderland album. I think they only had like 3 albums out. But yeah, the band is Slint. And they definitely have a unique sound. It's just a lot of interesting kind of instrumentation going on with very sparse kind of instruments. You just basically have your drum, your bass, your guitar. But they are doing it in kind of a more of a indie, progressive type of way. And the vocals are what really sets these guys apart and makes them sound like something that you can see why it's popular again today. The vocals are basically just a lot of talking and mumbling. There's really not a lot of singing going on here. 6 tracks. They are all very long tracks. And so each one except for the instrumental one, each one sort of tells a story. The first one, Breadcrumb Trail, tells the story of the guy's going to the carnival and he sees a fortune teller and he says, let's go on a roller coaster instead. And she grabs his hands and now they're off and flying into the sky. I'm assuming on a roller coaster. Maybe they're just flying in the sky. I don't know. They look down, they see the tickets, the ticket guy with the tickets next to him on the ground. Somebody throws up. So it's that kind of thing. But it's like storytelling in this kind of, kind of aloof, definite current type situation where it would fit in right with some of the releases that are coming out in the last 5 or 6 years. So it makes for an interesting listen, but it does sort of wear thin, I guess, a little bit. After you kind of get what's going on here, it's kind of like, okay, is this going to change? No, it does not change. Like I said, there is an instrumental, but the instrumental is basically just some chord, strumming for 5 minutes. But yeah, this type of thing is what artists, I think, usually put on albums as an individual track, like to have something different. They'll have like a talking, storytelling track on, the middle of side 2 or towards the end or something. But this band, that's their whole thing. And the highlights are definitely the first song, Breadcrumb Trail, and then the last song, Good Morning Captain, about the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And it is, again, a story told, this one time from, they're from first-person perspective, so it's basically the guy narrating his own story, and he can see the shipwreck way out, and he's the only one left, and it's just kind of this, again, this monotonous kind of storytelling, and then it builds to this big end where he's screaming for a few lines, and then the album ends. So, like I said, it's kind of ahead of its time. It's an interesting listen once or twice. I don't think it's something I'll be revisiting a lot. But it is also ahead of its time in an interesting way. On the CD, it actually says this album was meant to be listened to on vinyl. But if you want a vinyl original, it's going to run you about $200. The CD isn't cheap either. The CD is like a $25 CD, $30 CD. Somebody is selling it on Discogs for $40, even though the highest price it's ever sold for is like 38 or something like that. So that's interesting. It's one of those things where somebody sees the highest price it's ever sold for, probably autographed or sealed, and goes, well, I'll sell mine for $2 more. They're still sitting there, by the way, on sale if you'd like to buy those. Time to talk about some fun punk rock from the Vandals and Fear of a Punk Planet. The Vandals kind of came and went pretty quickly in the early 90s. I latched onto them in college, and I heard a couple of their albums, thought they were pretty fun. I think this was probably one of them at the time. And they're just the fun punk rock stuff. They're not overly aggressive. They don't get political. They're not that angry. It's more about trying to be funny, trying to be satirical. And that's their whole zone there. They get some help on this one from Moon Unit and Dweezil Zappa on a couple songs. Moon Unit actually lends her vocals to one of them, and it's just basically stuff that's not to be taken too seriously at all. Some of it does sound a little more punk pop than the rest of it, but they don't have those annoying punk pop vocals that I can't stand. That whiny kind of sing-songish shit. They don't do that. With the vocals and the attitude, they kind of stay pretty much punk rock, but some of the music is a little more punk pop stuff. But just really a fun album. Nothing to be taken too seriously at all. They've got songs on here about the death of Farrah Fawcett, which, obviously this is 1991, so this is before the actual death of Farrah Fawcett, which turned out to be kind of more, I don't want to say absurd, but kind of more there's more to have been said about it than what these guys think is going to happen. The fact that she died the same day as Michael Jackson and her death was completely overshadowed, you know, that would be something to actually write a song about. But you know, obviously they don't know that's going to happen, so they just make this goofy song about, I don't know, she's killed or something in some kind of accident or something, I don't remember. But yeah, so there's that. There's the song about falling in love with the robot Vicky from the TV show Small Wonder. If you remember that, there was a syndicated TV show in the 80s I used to watch, and it was about this inventor that had this little robot girl named Vicky, and she talked like this, and everything was very much like, you know, I am a robot, you know. I think there was another little kid in there as well. And the Vandals, the singer here, is in love with Vicky the robot. And she's got this lustiness and this passion that can't be quenched. And, you know, and he's, you know, it's sad because he's in love with a robot. The thing is, it's never mentioned that this robot is 10 years old. Maybe he's talking about the robot currently in 90. Maybe she's a little older in 91. Like I said, I think the TV show was from the mid-80s. So maybe she's a little older, but she wouldn't be that much older. Still a child robot. That's never mentioned, though. There is a song called Girls All Turn 18 sometime. There's that. So it's a little odd in some places on this album. But, you know, overall, I think it's all supposed to be in good fun, if that's your idea of fun. It's the Vandals in Fear of a Punk Planet. Tight band. They've obviously rehearsed. They got it together. They're rocking out pretty hardcore, but not to be taken too seriously. And that is going to wrap up the ranking of 140 albums from 1991. Thank you so much for clicking on part 3 and checking out this video. Plenty of more parts coming up. As again, I always say, the albums do get better and better and better, at least in my opinion, because I was the one ranking them, and that's how countdowns work. They just get better and better and better. So we had some bad stuff we got through. We had some not as bad stuff we got through. We had some meh stuff we just got through. Next will be kind of the mid-level stuff, and then the better stuff, and then the great stuff, and then the best stuff. So I really appreciate you checking out this video, wrapping up your year by counting down not the top albums of 2024, the top albums of 1991. I'm Robert Fitz, and thank you again so much for watching.